Hey YouTube, I've been trying to work out this green screen thing, kind of jazz up my blogs a little bit before I actually start producing them. And this is as far as I've gotten, and I'm not quite satisfied with it. So until I get it down whether I feel it's good enough to use, I'm going to just move over here and pretend the green is gone. Now, since I'm a big fan of the Dixie Chicks, I was pleased to see that they won Grammys in all 5 categories for which they were nominated. But I was even more pleased with Natalie's response to a reporter's question as to whether they now felt vindicated. She said that the vindication came the instant they released their Long Way Around album. As most folks know, the Dixie Chicks have been the target of a hate campaign that's probably cost them millions of dollars. And while the Grammy voters were obviously saying up yours to the countrified hate squad, the Chicks' greatest satisfaction came from producing work that told the simple truth about who they were as musicians, as friends, and mostly as American citizens. Their detractors' comeuppance was meaningless in comparison to their self-satisfaction with being true to their own selves. Now, that attitude, however admirable, is easier said than done, and I suspect the Dixie Chicks might have flashed a smirk or two once they were off stage. Since the issue of haters is one of the recurring themes on YouTube, and seems to be on an exponential growth curve worldwide, I decided to post some of my thoughts on the subject, which I'm sure will take me more than 1 or 2 uploads. Haters come in a variety of flavors, so responding to the hate threat is not a simple one-step procedure. But in this video, I want to focus on one group of haters in particular, a group of people I call the Rerdneck pseudo-patriots. 2 of the reasons for that are that, one, it will give me an opportunity to unleash some of my own anger, and also because I think this group of people are unwittingly contributing to the destruction of the very country for which they so loudly proclaim their love. One of the most common attributes of this, folks, is that they're operating on borrowed credentials. When Natalie said to the London concert goers, "Just so you know, we are ashamed the President of the United States is from Texas," she was expressing a thought she had created. And the Dixie Chicks made no claim of representing anything or anyone but their own opinions. Or as George himself might say, in other words, they spoke for themselves. But the herd of haters did not begin their stampede as a function of their individual thoughts. When they see or hear something that in any way they perceive might be questioning their belief system, their response is instant and automatic. It's stimulus response in its most fundamental sense. And the words they speak are not a direct response to the perceived threat, but are simply memorized catchphrases spoken automatically and without thought. It is just a ritualistic litany spoken so often that it is accepted as unquestionable truth, a final judgment. "I'm not going to vote." Then you have no right to complain. The commonality of the terms give them the perceived authority far beyond their individual opinion. Instead, they perceive themselves as speaking for America itself, or the flag, or the Constitution, or the troops, or the President. Not only are these folks incapable of thinking for themselves, but they greatly exaggerate the detrimental impact of whatever they happen to be criticizing. Natalie's offhand remark did absolutely nothing to build anti-American sentiments sentiment in the audience, but simply reflected the opinions the audience already had. So a remark that was agreeably but casually received by the London audience to whom it was spoken was portrayed as an act of treason the Dixie Chicks had created against those who were fighting to give them the gift of freedom to speak. But that freedom was meant only to be had, not used. Once used, the freedom they had mysteriously turned into a betrayal they committed. The Chicks' traitorous behavior was compounded because it took place on foreign soil, right smack in the middle of anti-American hostilities in the middle of London, England. Yeah. Another characteristic of the archetypical redneck is their combative propensity. Maybe it's a genetic carryover from the Hatfields and the McCoys, but I beg to differ, is not part of their vocabulary. As one country song puts it, when you're running down my country, you're walking on the fighting side of me. Actual physical attacks as a form of social disapproval are not currently as prevalent, thankfully, as they once were, but they seem to be more accepted form of behavior among these folks than most other groups. Even so, their passive-aggressive gene is alive and well. One country singer was quoted as saying, if they had said that about Saddam, they would be dragging their headless bodies through the streets of Baghdad. The over-exaggerated attacks against those who love their country enough to judge it honestly does intimidate many who disagree with the direction our country is going or are afraid to speak out because they are afraid they'll be judged at the very least as being unpatriotic or disloyal to the troops who place their lives in danger. Ironically, the country clan's fierce loyalty to President Bush is not reciprocated. Bush has made it perfectly clear that his loyalty lies with his base, which is only composed of the very rich and powerful. Now, many of these folks are hard-working, basically honest people who are perhaps less well-educated, maybe financially struggling a bit, and less self-assured than the average person. They're not a very powerful group. They're just loud. And basically, their principal value to Bush is just to fill in the seats. Oh, well, of course, and to supply most of the sons and daughters he sends off to be killed for his Faustian fantasies, or to bring them back to their families horribly scarred and then abandoned by their government. Now, Bush and his company well understand that these people will believe anything he says, so his lies grow more and more bizarre, and they sacrifice not only their, but our own future for the illusion that their leaders value them. Well, that's not much about hate or what to do about it, but it is a start.